Welcome everyone to the NSA Connect session this evening. We have a great program for you. We have three panelists plus myself here today to talk about Toastmasters International, how it's impacted our lives and how it's made us more confident public speakers and leaders. So let's go ahead and dig in. I'll ask everyone on the panel to please introduce themselves, give a brief introduction, talk about their Toastmasters origin story, how they heard about Toastmasters, why they joined, and why they stayed Toastmasters. So Monica, would you like to go first?
Sure. Hi, I am Monica Jackson. It's been a minute since I was active in Toastmasters. I joined, gosh, I don't even know when. It's probably been, why was the year 2020 years ago? Oh my gosh. So it was more of a kind of a network, get to know others. I was in Toastmasters in college, and I really gained a lot of I think speaking skills from that. So I knew as I was entering the workforce that would be maybe a good network connection that I did. So I did that, and then of course life gets busy, and and that was just one of the things I haven't had time to pick back up. It's not to say that I wouldn't, but it's just, life just gets busy. But I think that the skills I learned from that were very, very valuable, and skills that you use every day. So.
Great. Thanks, Monica. Carl, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Carl Coffey. I live in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and I am the Vice President of Membership for our local club here. It's called Thoroughbred Toastmasters. Thoroughbred because we're Kentucky, home of the horses, all that stuff. My Toastmasters origin story kind of started. It was an interesting start. I was telling Chris and everyone before we started. I went to my first Toastmasters meeting when I lived in Virginia Beach a few years ago, and I went to one meeting and I never went back. So I moved to Kentucky in 2017 and didn't come to my first meeting until 2021. It was during COVID, and so our club was only meeting virtually. And I think for me, I was a little bit nervous. I'd never known much about Toastmasters, and so I figured, hey, if I like it, I can keep going. If I don't, it's on Zoom, so I can just put myself on mute and fade in the background. But I really like my club. For me, I think I joined as more of a professional development networking opportunity. I work from home, and so I don't get a chance to meet a lot of people in the community. And so for me, it was a great way just to meet people locally here and just to make friends. And everyone at Toastmasters is there because they want to improve their public speaking skills. So I think for me, as a person who stutters, it helps knowing that everyone, even if they don't stutter, is there for this same reason. And I felt like that was a really welcoming environment.
Exactly. Thank you, Carl. And unless we have Ahmad Gilliam. Ahmad, would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, my name is Ahmad Gilliam. I live actually near White House, Tennessee. Been in Toastmasters. This will be 20 years, and I'm District 63 director of the chapter here. Well, the Toastmasters here, which is Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, and the southwestern portion of Virginia. My Toastmaster story is a little unique. 20 years ago, and if you can't normally tell, I'm a natural introvert. Anything having to do with conversations in a public setting would terrify me to the point of illness at that point. I hated talking with anybody more than just one person at a time. So I was working in customer service at the time once I graduated from college at Western and had a finance degree. Hated customer service with a passion. And a friend of mine knew that it was either going to be me traveling back home, which I'm from the northern tip of West Virginia near the Ohio Pennsylvania border, or I was going to have to find a job down here and get a position that I really wanted. So he had told me, get involved and let me bring you to the Toastmasters meeting that I'm involved with, because they will help you develop your communication and skills to the point where you feel comfortable with talking to groups of people. Because if you would have told myself 20 years ago that I would be doing something like this now, I would have told you you completely lost your mind. There is no way that's happening. So that's the reason why I joined Toastmasters and continued in Toastmasters, is because I love the position that I'm in with the company and I'm with, which is Fruit of the Loom. Enjoy the job. And that's the reason why I continue with Toastmasters, is to continue to develop those skill sets that I need to get to exactly where I'm going.
Great, thank you, Ahmad. So for myself, my name is Chris Goldman, and I'm the moderator today. I'm from right now I live just south of Nashville. My story with Toastmasters is I think I heard of Toastmasters through my speech language pathologist. Sorry. Through my speech language a pathologist who may have introduced me to just what Toastmasters was. This would have been 35 years ago, before I went to Georgia Tech, before I did my undergrad at Georgia Tech in Atlanta. And when I was going down to school, I made myself a promise. I said, I'm going to put myself in situations where I have to speak. All throughout high school, I was probably more introverted than Mod. And I really didn't speak that much. So I consciously decided to put myself in cases where I had to speak, and that's why I joined Toastmasters for the first time. Now, I mentioned before we started that your first club meeting is like jumping into the deep end, because you don't know what to expect. You know, you're really you might be shy, you might be not willing to speak, but everybody, when they join Toastmasters, is in a similar case. They are everyone there is wanting to improve their public speaking. Everyone there is dealing with their own issues, their own things, and for me, a Toastmasters was a leveling the playing field experience. I've been a member more off and on, but for the past 30 some odd years, since the early 90s, and it's really changed my life. It's really improved my skills, my confidence, and that's me. So just to let everyone know, I'm gonna see that we have a great a group of attendees. I thank you for attending. Just to let you know how this is gonna go about is, we have, uh, we'll have a Q&A session, towards the end of the session. So probably the last 25 minutes to 30 minutes, we'll dive into, live Q&A. But the first, I want to take, some time to explain what Toastmasters is and how meetings, flow. And then I'll ask questions of the panelists, to enlighten us, with their experience. So, a typical Toastmasters meeting has three main sections. The first section is a prepared speech section where members prepare and deliver, typically a 5 to 7 minute speech, 5 to 7 minutes, although it could be longer or shorter depending on the project. And these speeches are towards a project in the Toastmasters education program called Pathways. The content of the speeches is always up to the speaker, but each project focuses on one or more aspects of public speaking or leadership. For instance, there's a project on vocal variety. There's a project on you know, gesturing and body language. The next section of the meeting is called table topics, and that section is an impromptu speaking opportunity where members and guests can respond to questions, normally 1 to 2 minute answers. But the table topics master will prepare a list of questions, and will either ask your volunteers or volunteer people themselves to speak. This section is impromptu speaking, which is another skill, that's much different than prepared speak, than delivering a prepared speech. So my questions for the panelists, are, number one, have you personally gotten more value from the prepared speeches or the impromptu table topic section? And how did you apply the skills you've learned outside Toastmasters? Does anybody want to respond to that?
Sure, I'll go first.
Sure, Carl.
I really like table topics a lot. At our meeting, we had our club meeting last night, and I was actually table topics master, which is a role that you can play in your meeting. And so what that person does is they come up with a list of questions, and it's supposed to prompt you to think on your feet, to practice your off the cuff kind of speaking. And for me, that's something that I always struggled with. If I knew exactly what I was going to say, I would make an outline. If I had a meeting or a presentation, I would, to the word I was going to say, I would have a script because I could practice that and be confident in that. But when it came to just having everyday conversation or having small talk with people, that's really where I found that I struggled. And so for me, table topics was something that I really wanted to improve on. It helps me to not only think of how to construct an answer, like during table topics, you might get asked the most ridiculous question. And the goal isn't to necessarily come up with the right answer, but it's to kind of, see how long you can speak. And so, like Chris was saying, table topics, typically your answer will last for a minute to 2 minutes. And it's really difficult to sometimes speak on a topic, especially if you get a weird question. It's hard to speak for like a minute and a half on something. So it forces you to do things like acknowledge the person asking the question, saying, well, thank you so much for that question. I really appreciate it. when I think about something, it forces you to do these things that really good communicators do that you don't necessarily think about, but it forces you to kind of reprogram your mind and reprogram how you speak. And for me, I found that was really something that helped me professionally at work. If I was called on in a meeting, I typically would get so visibly uncomfortable. I would start shaking when I would have to respond because I was so nervous. And I still get uncomfortable when I'm put on the spot, but now I feel better able to, navigate that experience now because of table topics and Toastmasters. So
Thank you, Carl. Monica or Ahmad, do you want to?
Well, I would go off of what he said. Is anything we can do to, I think, have a win in our bank, in our head, and say, remember that time when at table topics where I was able to answer, and inside that it was a win. Then the next time it kind of sensitizes you to the times when you maybe need a win, and you're like, God, I just stumbled my way through that. And so it gives you something to go back and remember on. And like he was saying, where you go, well, that was a very good question. How you learn how to give yourself a minute to gather yourself so that you can then answer when you're asked something off the cuff without just sitting there going, but instead you're going, you can have that, like, oh my gosh, inside, but on the outside, you've done this to where you've desensitized yourself to where you can present your thoughts much clearer, and to where you feel where you're, like, yay, me.
I agree that practice is so important. Ahmad?
Yeah, and thanks, Chris. And what I'll do is I'll take this from the perspective of the presentation portion of it.
Yeah.
I will say, when I started Toastmasters, I had a habit of the first presentation that I had to do, which is called an icebreaker, and it's where you introduce yourself to the club and the club gets to know you better. I had a habit of, even when I learned this in college, that I had to literally write verbatim my speech from start to finish on a sheet of paper and read the entire presentation from the first word to the last word. And I literally could not, the sheet of paper was a handcuff to me. I could not get away from it. I was addicted to it, and that was the only way that I could survive through a presentation, is to write it completely out and say it verbatim, and that was it. The one thing that helped with Toastmasters is the encouragement for the people there at the meeting to help with getting the fluency with the presentations enough that I could feel comfortable with allowing myself to not grasp that piece of paper like a handcuff and literally have to write the speech and read it verbatim. I could just write bullet points, go from the bullet points, and not have to be handcuffed to a document to get me from start to finish. So that was the one thing that Toastmasters definitely helped me with over the years.
Thanks, Ahmad. And I agree. I agree with you. I think both the impromptu section and the prepared section has merit, and that's why it's part of every meeting. What I got out of the prepared section is I was able to construct I was able to construct a well-constructed speech. I was able to direct my introduction, to do the transitions, to do the main points, and all that. So it really gave me that outline of how a speech should flow. And not every speech is going to flow that same exact way. But once you get that muscle memory of being able to do it time and time again, it certainly helps you. And a real life example of where impromptu speaking is important is like an elevator pitch, where if you're in an elevator with your boss or your boss's boss or the president of the company, and you've got a 1 to 2 minute elevator ride with that person, you want to be able to come across well, and to express your thoughts well, and to express your thoughts within that time frame. So that's yeah, I agree with everybody. I mentioned it in the beginning that there were 3 sections to the Toastmasters meeting, to a typical Toastmasters meeting. The third section of the meeting is the evaluation portion. And evaluations are a very large part of the Toastmasters experience. Every prepared speech that you give as a member is formally evaluated by another member of your club during the meeting in which you give the speech. And as members, we are expected to also give evaluations as well as to receive them. So my questions for Monica, Carl, and Ahmad are: what's the most most memorable experience or memorable piece of advice you've received in an evaluation? And can you touch on the benefits of giving evaluations versus receiving them?
I think for me, one of the things I learned is that I was harder on myself than anyone else was. I would be like, oh my gosh, I did all, and they were like, that was really good, and I was like, and that was without me saying, I'm a person who stutters. I was just a person, and it wasn't even said. Like, I hadn't even said to anybody, I'm a person who stutters. Now, whether or not that they knew or not, I don't know. But in my head, it was, it was loud. The reverberations were so loud and deafening. And then to have them say, that was really good. You did, your thoughts were gathered, your blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? So it made me learn that, and again, to grant myself a little bit of grace, and how good preparation pays off in the end. How if you feel more confident, and we all know for a person who stutters, the icebreaker is we would just as soon have a root canal than do an icebreaker. So once that we get over that, we're like, oh, this is going to be easy. I survived the icebreaker and lived to tell about it. So it's those things, and again, it's the desensitizing of ourselves and getting out of our own heads and saying, oh, I can actually compose my thoughts and put them out there, and people can understand. And so, that was it for me.
Thanks, Monica. I appreciate that. Carl or Ahmad, do you want to?
Sure. I'll go. It's been a couple of years since I did my icebreaker speech, but I did my icebreaker speech about being a person who stutters. And I did that for a very particular reason. For a really long time, I've been a covert stutterer. I don't know if a lot of people know that specific term, but pretty much I would try and hide my stuttering at any opportunity. I didn't want people to know that I stuttered. And so my thing was, hey, if I'm going to commit to being a part of this group that's going to improve my public speaking skills, I'm going to just, be upfront and say, hey, I stutter. And, not because I wanted to become a more fluent person. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to become more comfortable in just speaking and in different types of environments. And so I know Ahmad was sharing, that when he wrote his icebreaker speech, it was kind of start to finish. You had all the words. I was the same way. Like, I had every single word I was going to say. If I wanted to put in a pause or like a dramatic effect, I would write that in too. Like, I did not want to leave anything to chance. And so for probably my first 3 speeches, it was just like a script, start to finish. And during one of my evaluations, one of the mentors in my club, Kurt, he said to me, "Hey, Carl, I think you've gotten to a point where you don't need to have a script anymore." He's like, "You can just do an outline." He's like, "You know what you're going to say. You construct your thoughts well." He's like, "I think you're leaning on that outline a little too much, and it's time that you graduate from it." And I think that I knew that was true, but I was so just that gave me so much comfort to have that. And so, that kind of, to me, reinforces what Toastmasters is about. Like, everyone is there to improve their speaking, whether it's someone who, wants to become better at giving presentations, or if it's someone who, wants to practice not saying ums and ahs. That definitely is me. And we can go into that a little bit later. But I think that to me was like the best advice, was just knowing that even as a person who stutters, like, you can still be an effective public speaker. I think having that message reinforced was really important.
Yeah, I completely agree, Carl. I think I've said time and time again that Toastmasters is a safe space, and the evaluations are delivered in a positive way in order to help the speaker. I've never experienced an evaluation that was delivered negatively, or it's always delivered in a very helpful way. So I agree with your feedback. Ahmad, do you have anything to share?
And well, actually, Chris, you brought up a great point. I will say that the first presentation I gave in college at a public speaking course, I got annihilated by the professor. They told me, don't talk anymore. You need to just deal with either phone conversations or something, because you're not good at communicating. And that stuck with me through college and into the early part of my working career. So when I gave my first speech at Toastmasters, I was preparing myself to probably get annihilated by what the evaluation was, because I was literally shaking. You could hear the piece of paper that I had in my hand flapping as I was going through the start and conclusion of that presentation. And I was like, this is going to get ugly. You probably are not going to ever need to do this again. But shockingly, they had multiple number of great points that I had done well, that I took the courage to get up there and give the presentation. I had eye contact, shockingly, and I did use a couple of gestures. So I was like, wow, that's a lot more positive than I thought. And then they just had a suggestion for improvement, which was to not hug the sheet of paper that I had as much. And then they ended with, "We look forward to hearing your next presentation." So I was like, well, that was not what I expected. Okay, maybe this is an environment that I can grow in and I can actually get over this. So that's the one thing that you said, it was a safe space. I will completely agree with you. It is definitely a safe space that they will help you and encourage you to get better with whatever struggle you're working or wanting to work on.
I completely agree, Ahmad. Thanks for sharing that. So in every meeting, we have a number of different roles that people take. There is, of course, the Toastmaster of the day that leads the meeting. There's the table topics master that Carl referred to, that leads the table topics section. There's also the evaluators, but there's also some key roles that are number one, the timer, and number two, the odd counter. So every speaking opportunity has a target time, has a target duration. I mentioned a 5 to 7 minute speech, or a 1 to 2 minute a table topics response, or a 3 minute evaluation. So the purpose of having these target durations is to challenge everybody to get their thoughts out in that amount of time, and to complete their thoughts in that amount of time. And also, like Carl said, sometimes you have to stretch your thoughts to fill that time, but you've got that time duration as a target. The odd counter role is to record the filler words and the repetitions that are used by the speakers. Sometimes they're called crutch words, so, et cetera, et cetera. So as a person who stutters, I know that fitting my speaking episodes within the set amount of time can be challenging. And also, when I hear the odd counters report saying in Chris's 2-minute table topics response, he had 35 repetitions, that can be a little bit frustrating at times. But I'm well aware that these reports are delivered in a positive and friendly manner, just like the evaluations are. And I know that they're not just focused on me, but they're delivered to everybody equally and without prejudice, without any type of about focusing on one individual. It's everyone who speaks during the meeting gets feedback from the timer and the odd counter. So my question to my fellow panelists are, have the time targets and the odd counter reports challenged you, and how have you approached those types of challenges?
I can go first.
Sure, Carl.
The timers report, I think, has been helpful for me. I know that my speech has to be within a certain time period. And so I try to build my speech so that I fill that time. And so I think for me, it gives me an idea of how long I'm speaking. My wife will tell you that I tend to ramble on, and so it forces me to really be concise and clear and just focus on what I'm talking about. So I think the timers report is really helpful for me for that. The counter is a whole different story. I feel like I have a love-hate relationship with the counter. And it kind of, I know Ahmad said, from college when he was in a public speaking course. I remember in college, my advisor, I was in a class, and after I finished giving a point, she, in a very lighthearted way, she said, like that was really good, Carl. And she did it in a like teasing way. We had that kind of relationship, so I didn't feel like I was being targeted, but it really made me aware of how much I said and ah. And I think it goes back to me being a covert stutterer. I would rather say 1,000 times than have someone hear me stutter. And that was a lot of just the internal stuff that I had to break down and kind of deal with. So coming to Toastmasters and having that counter, like Chris said, having them not just focus on me and what I was doing, but also doing it for everyone in the meeting, you just see how common that is. And I think it helped me realize, okay, this is not just a me thing. This is something that a lot of people are here to deal with. And so for me, it forced me to really pause and utilize that pause. And instead of saying while I'm trying to get my thoughts together, just pausing and just giving myself the opportunity to pause. And I think that's something that I'm continually trying to work on. And so for me, I think the counter has been a super helpful thing, and that's one of my favorite aspects of the meeting. And I think that's something I always am trying to just be cognizant and aware of because I just do it so much.
Monica, Ahmad, you wanna?
Yeah, I disagree with, I mean, I fully agree with what Carl said. And I think that to be cognizant of saying, or those space fillers, just instead pause and collect, take a deep breath, take a cleansing breath, whatever, and then proceed to speak. But if you listen to the feedback on others that don't stutter, they also do it too. So it helps to know that, it's just not, the light isn't shining just on us. So that's good.
That's a good point. Ahmad, do you have anything to?
No, I think both Monica and Carl said it eloquently.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm now an area director, so I get the pleasure to visit multiple clubs in my area. And my home club, the club that I'm a member of, is so used to the way I speak that they're kind of desensitized to it. So I don't get that direct feedback that I've had, this many repetitions or this many ums or something. But when I visit other clubs, without me, without them knowing me, they might do that. So I mean, it's all taken within the positive feedback cycle for me. I mentioned that I'm now an area director. Toastmasters does offer a variety of leadership roles and meeting roles as well. Both at the club level. So at the club level, I think Carl said that you were a VPM, I believe, the vice president of membership. I've been VPM, I've been VPE, vice president of education. I've been president of my club. I know Ahmad has been every leadership role under the sun. So which meeting or leadership role have you enjoyed the most, and how have these experiences helped you grow?
I mean, I can start with that.
No, thanks.
The leadership role that I enjoyed the most with Toastmasters was there's actually two of them. At the club level, I really enjoyed being the sergeant at arms, which that person is the person who greets the guests that come into the room and make sure that they've got everything they need, help introduces them to, here's everyone that's in the meeting room, have a seat, makes them feel welcome. Because as an introvert, that was something that I hated with a passion, and it forced me to get out of my comfort zone to start meeting with people and start getting comfortable talking and meeting with people. So that was at the club level. At the district level, to expand upon that, being an area director like Chris is this year. And the reason that is because I was comfortable and get comfortable in specific situations, so much so that once I'm comfortable in it, I don't like getting outside of it at that point. So I was so comfortable with the club level that I was with the club for about 15 years before I decided to go and do anything with district leadership above that. It challenged me to branch out of those comfort zones again, to start meeting with the other clubs, see how their dynamics were, get to know them, build those relationships with them so that it would make me be more comfortable with reaching out to people who I don't know and not getting back to the same comfort zone as soon as I'm in a group of people, that I'm always in the corner by myself because I do not feel comfortable talking with people. So that's the two that I could say.
Oh, great. Thank you, Ahmad. Carl, Monica, do you have anything to add?
I've never done leadership role, so
How about a meeting role?
yeah, I don't know. I can't remember, but I mean, but what the Ahmad said is right. Getting out, and that's for everybody. Getting out of our comfort zone. I'm an extroverted introvert. Once I'm comfortable with you, I'm cool. But it's getting me out of that to where I will, because I'm not good about talking to people that I don't know. So it's always a good thing for us to get out there and do things outside of our zone, because we won't die. It's like, and that's what I always have to tell myself. You're not going to die from this. Well, I might. No, you won't.
Great, thanks. Carl?
Sure. So I guess by default, my leadership position now in my club, I'm the vice president of membership. And so that role is a very outward facing role. My job is pretty much to greet people when they come to meetings, maintain contact with visitors who inquire about our club, and with the goal to try to convert them over to joining our club and becoming members. And I don't think this is something I would have gone after myself, but the guy I mentioned earlier, Kurt, in my club, he's kind of the one that's always like, I know you can do this, Carl, you should try it. So he encouraged me to do it. And I was like, sure, I really like my club. I wanted to take on more responsibility. I was a bit shocked initially because so we have a club, we have a webpage for our club, and if you want to find out more information about our club, it talks about our club and who we are, how long we've been around. But also I found out that it has the contact information for the vice president of membership, and so my phone number is out on our club page. So anyone who they're interested in coming to a Thoroughbred Toastmasters meeting, they can pick up the phone and call or text and they'll get me. And I didn't know this until one day I got a call out of the blue, and it was from a number I didn't know. And I picked up, and it was a guy who awkwardly was like, "Hey, is this the right number for Toastmasters?" And I kind of was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a part of Thoroughbred Toastmasters." And so we started talking. And then I realized, oh, I guess this is my job to talk to people to bring them to Toastmasters. So if I'd known that before, I don't know if I would have taken the job. But Toastmasters has gotten me out of my comfort zone. I am like Monica, where I'm an introverted extrovert. I love people, but I gotta get to know you first, and then I'm really cool and love to talk. So it definitely pushed me out of my comfort zone, but really just forcing me to continue doing things I don't necessarily like doing, like talking on the phone to strangers, that being one of those things.
Great. That's fantastic, Carl. For me, at the club level, I've enjoyed vice president of education. So vice president of education is in charge of, well, not in charge of, but make sure that every member achieves their goals in terms of the education program. Like I mentioned, the main education program within Toastmasters is Pathways. Every Pathways has 5 levels. There's multiple projects per level, so it's really making sure people, it's really making sure that the VPE knows what each individual member's goals are, and helps to keep them on track to meet those goals. So I really enjoyed that aspect, and now as an area director, I do get to visit multiple clubs within my area, and I do get to help them as well. So it's more, branching out, like Ahmad was saying, branching out from your club, which you might be entrenched in and you might be very comfortable in, but you know, getting the opportunity to branch out to other clubs is very valuable for me. So I put a link in the chat. We'll speak about this link in a few minutes, but this is a way to reach out to Toastmasters, to find a club in your area. I realize that many of you, or I don't know where the audience members are based at. So, but this link, you can put your zip code, you can put the city that you live in, you can find a club. Now that we're in a hybrid environment, many clubs meet online and in person, or some clubs might meet only online, so some clubs might meet only in person. But you'll be able to find that information through that link, and it's really opened up the number of clubs that you're exposed to, because you're no longer tied to the club in your geographic area, but you can join, or you can visit any club. So I encourage everyone to go to that link and to explore the Toastmasters website. So so for me, I mentioned that joining Toastmasters has been a leveling the playing field experience. It's given me the understanding that many different people see the need or have the desire to improve their public speaking skills for any number of reasons, right? It could be that they're interested in speech contests. It could be that they're motivated by their job. It could be that they're in school. It could, every Toastmaster has a different background and a different reason for attending their first meeting and joining and staying. So my question for Ahmad, and then Carl and Monica can chime in, but specifically from Ahmad, from a district leader perspective, how do you ensure that the clubs continue to be welcoming and maintain their inclusiveness so that everybody feels welcome at their meetings?
Thanks, Chris. The one thing that, from a district perspective, that we make sure that the clubs maintain that inclusiveness is we train the clubs every 6 months to make sure that they have the tools and they have the expertise and the expertise to know to continue to be welcoming. And that's one thing that I have seen through every single one of the Toastmasters clubs that I have visited. And that's one thing I encourage everyone to do. Visit as many clubs as you want to. Each club is completely different. They do things a little differently because they have their own flavor on it. But every club that I have visited has always been welcoming as soon as I show up. They've always made me feel like that they were a part of, or I'm a part of that meeting, and I don't feel like that it's a secret society, or I'm a stranger, or I am not welcome here, don't come back. I have never felt that feeling from any of the Toastmasters clubs that I visited. They make sure that as soon as you show up, that they say hi, they see how you're doing, they welcome you. If you're there in person, they'll say you can sit anywhere you want. If you've got any questions, let me know. We make sure that if there is anybody that has any concerns about that, well, this club didn't make me feel welcome or anything, we then go talk to the club and see, okay, is there something that the club doesn't know or something that we need to talk to the club about? Because we want that inclusivity for every Toastmasters guest or a potential member to know you are more than welcome to any of our clubs. They will welcome you with open arms. and you're just as much a valuable member of that club than the members themselves. So that's the one thing from a district perspective is that we make sure that all the clubs make sure that anybody that shows up, welcome them with open arms and make sure that they feel inclusive and make sure they feel like that they're a part of that meeting.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm Ahmad. So I visited multiple clubs within this district and outside the district as well. And I've never experienced any type of, I've never not felt welcome at a Toastmasters meeting. It's always been a great experience, when I've, all the meetings and all the clubs I've been at. And I too encourage people when they're looking for clubs to visit multiple clubs, to shop around, right? Because every club meets at different times. So it's you need to find one that of course fits your schedule. But that's one thing that you'll find in that link that I just put in the chat a few minutes ago. You can put the day of the week, the time of day that you're interested in meeting, and the website has all that, so it can spit you out the results that would suit you and your time, and your time availability the best. There are clubs that meet on the weekends, on Saturday mornings. Clubs meet in the evenings. Clubs meet during lunchtime, and there are different clubs. There are corporate clubs that primarily serve one corporation. My club that I'm a member of is an open corporate club where we're given resources by the corporation, but we also are welcoming outside people as well. There are closed corporate clubs that just serve that particular organization, and then there are community clubs that belong to the community, right? That might meet at a library or a church or something like that. And thirdly, the third main category is college clubs. They're clubs at particular schools where you're welcome to join if you go to that school. Carl and Monica, do you have anything to add on that topic?
I don't.
Sure, I can add just a little. So I don't have much experience with at the district level, but we did have a training a couple of weeks ago. Chris was the Zoom master, and I don't know how he did it, but he put everybody in their rooms, and it was awesome. But that was a great opportunity for me to like meet other people from clubs that were in our area and kind of talk about how they like what things they do to attract new members. Like one thing that we are trying to do in our club is to establish a mentorship program. And I didn't know the first place to start on how to do that, but actually hearing from other clubs who have been doing that for a long time and who have a process, and just hearing how they started, and having them be able to share resources and best practices that I can bring to our club was really helpful to have.
Yeah, but I agree. Just like Mike was saying, every club is different in terms of the flavor, in terms of their vibe, but every club deals with the same issues and has the same challenges. So sharing between clubs is really important. So I would like to ask whether Monica, Carl, or Maud have anything else they want to share, and then we'll check the chat, because I have it open, but Pam, I haven't been able to really pay attention, so I don't know if there's anything we need to answer in the chat, and then we can open it up for live Q&A. So is there anything that we'd like to share as panelists to the group?
I don't.
I'll just share this one thing. Look at Toastmasters as a vehicle to get you, if you want to pursue Toastmasters, look at it as a vehicle to get you to the place or the person that you want to be in the future. The one thing that I didn't and wasn't aware of at the early part of my Toastmasters year that I wish I would have been aware of is I didn't know the person that I knew the person I wanted to be, but I didn't know how to get there. I didn't know how to get over the introvertedness and the communication issues until I started with Toastmasters. And then I got engaged enough with it that I knew this is the path for me to become the person that I want to be. So take hold if you want to join Joe or experience Toastmasters, take hold of it and use it as the vehicle to get you to the place and the person that you want to be in the future, and take full advantage of that as much as you can. Chris?
That's great advice. Thanks, Ahmad. Carl?
Yeah, I had one other point I was going to make. So I became a people manager for the first time in my career last year, and I was absolutely terrified because I was uncomfortable with being responsible for anybody other than myself. But I think for me, the evaluation portion of the meetings was really helpful because it gave me the structure on how to deliver feedback effectively. Like, you don't just want to tell people what they did great, but you also want to tell them like, hey, here's some things that I noticed. Here's something to consider for the future or for next time. So I feel like that really gave me a good kind of structure on how to have difficult conversations, and also when it came time for like the annual evaluation period, it kind of gave me a good structure because I was in Toastmasters, understanding like how to deliver effective feedback to people that they would actually be able to use, that wouldn't just be fluff that wouldn't help them at all.
Great. Thanks, Carl. That is important, and I agree that giving feedback to people and interspersing, positive feedback and feedback on things that they ought to be aware of and improve upon is very important. So I completely agree with that. Pam, I see your question about the cost, and we'll certainly answer that question. But are there any other questions in the chat that we need to address, or can we open up to the live Q&A? Okay, so why don't we? So I see Pam's question about is there a cost involved to be a member of Toastmasters? There is a cost. It's quite nominal in my opinion. It is roughly $10 per month, $60 per semester per half year. If you treat Toastmasters as the vehicle, like Ahmad was saying, to help you become the person that you want to be, I believe that cost is well worth it. I've heard people compare Toastmasters to public speaking classes, to even you compare it to like an MBA type thing. But in my mind, that cost is well worth it for the experience that you get. Now, mind you, it's one of it's an example of you get out of it what you put into it. So there are members who may not put much into it and may not get much out of it. But if you're committed to wanting to become the person who you want to be, and putting in the effort to be to contribute to meetings, to follow your path, to doing your projects and all that, then you will get more than the value that the cost is uh that you put into it. Ahmad, do you have anything else to add on that?
No, the only thing I would add, Chris, is there's only a one-time new membership fee of $20, but that just covers the first path. And like Chris said, it's compared to the other speaking trainings and things of that nature that's out there, it's really it's really a minute investment versus if you go and get a 6-week training course that you don't have any other, you can't get any more further training to develop it after that training course, versus this is just $120 a year to get consistent feedback, consistent opportunities to practice, and consistently refining those skills over a longer period of time. So I agree with Chris. It's a nominal fee to have that ability to be able to not only improve at the club level, that fee also gives you the ability that you can visit any club around the world. And if you want to present there, if they've got a spot, by all means, you can present there as well. It gives you nominal opportunities as well for that small fee.
Thank you, Ahmad. Thanks. Carl?
And Chris and you might have to confirm this, but like with contests, like if you compete in a contest outside of your club, does your membership fee cover that, so you don't have to pay anything additional that you compete? Okay,
Yes. It
gotcha.
does.
Okay, yeah, and I don't think we've touched on that a whole lot, but like, a lot of people will present speeches in their club, just to the members of their own club. But then if you like to say, if you have a really great speech and you're like, I know this would do really well and I want to really work on tweaking some things, you can then take that speech and and present at the contest level. And that's a really great opportunity to go up against people who are trying to improve their public speaking skills as well, and also to meet other people as well. And so that is something that I've just started to do in the past few months and that I've really enjoyed. It's been a great opportunity.
In fact, that's how I found out Carl was a Toastmaster.
Mhm.
I met Carl here in Nashville at an event held by the NSA in Nashville, and I saw him compete in the contest. So I reached out to him. That's how we connected. So that's contests are a really big part of Toastmasters, and it really feeds the competitiveness of some people, to always compete and all that. So that's another reason why people join and people stay in Toastmasters. Um, any questions from the audience? We'll open it up. Please unmute yourself and we can field any questions. Not all at once.
I mean, I could keep talking.
Sure.
I know that's something that Pam and Derek, they both have known me long enough. They know that you want me to talk, I can start. I was going to share too, like if you are coming to Toastmasters and you want to work on a specific type of skill, like, you know, if you want to become a coach or if you want to work on, you know, like leadership or something like that, you know, we've talked about the different paths, you know, so there are different pathways you can take. I just pulled up a screen on screen on my computer that kind of talks about a few of the like pathways. So there's one on persuasive influence, there's another on motivational strategies, there's another on leadership development. The one that I'm doing now, which our pathways are changing, I think, in the next few months or so, but I'm doing the strategic relationships one. I really wanted to do that because I want to, you know, improve my skills in terms of building relationships with people, and that's one of the reasons why I joined Toastmasters. So when I saw that that was a path, I was like, oh, that's something that I really need to invest in. So that's been really cool. Like you get these prompts on what the topics are for your speech, so you don't just say, hey, I don't know what I'm going to make a speech about. They kind of give you training on these topics that will help you along your path as you continue on. So that's a really effective way where if you know, hey, I want to be a motivational speaker, there's a path that can kind of help you develop those skills and really fine tune that.
Thanks, Carl. I know many people who are either former Toastmasters or who are current Toastmasters who have, you know, coaching companies, who are you know, executive coaches, um, who do speaking for a living. In fact, Toastmasters has an accredited speaker program where if you advance far enough, you can become accredited, and you can have this accreditation under your belt to you know, to fall back on and say, hey, if you want me to give a speech to your organization, I certainly can. One of my favorite pathways is engaging humor. So that I so Toastmasters is for everybody, and one of the things that always has always interested me is stand-up comedy. I'm not funny in any way, but Toastmasters does teach you, one of the skills that Toastmasters teaches you is how to introduce humor into your speeches. And because humor is a very effective way to, of course, to lighten the atmosphere, to break the ice, to, you know, to start your speech off, to end your speech. And it's a good skill to have to be able to intersperse your speech with humorous anecdotes, um, with humorous stories. So you know, Toastmasters does cater to that as well. Um, any other questions or any other points that anybody has?
Actually, yeah, I have a question.
Hi, John. Yes.
How are you? Is there any Toastmaster groups out there virtually that is just geared for people who stutter?
So I there there was a chapter, a Toastmasters club in the Nashville area, in fact, years before I got here, I think, called Fearless Communicators. I don't know of one right now. Pam, do you know of one of a chapter that is?
I am not aware of that. I know for quite a while there was one in Dallas.
Okay.
that was just for people who stutter. That was started by the famous Russ Hicks.
Mhm.
But um, but I'm not sure if there are any. For the person asking the question, just out of curiosity, why do you ask? Would you prefer that?
I would just, maybe it'd be more of an easier environment, to first start off your public speaking. That,
Yeah,
that was really that was really my only, curiosity about it.
yeah, I would just add that, one of the things that really helped me when I got started was just the realization that so many people who do not stutter are absolutely panicked about public speaking, like it's like the most terrifying thing, and I think sometimes we think we who stutter like we have like we are the only ones that like totally fear that fear, but tons of people are petrified of public speaking. So, just realizing that, like, it just provided me with some real comfort, that I wasn't the only one being brave in my club. So was everybody else who just hates having to do public speaking. Um, so
That
yeah, there's
makes
that.
sense. Thank you. Makes sense.
Yeah. I didn't hear anybody mention, I'll ask, and I wrote it in the chat. Do any of the do any Toastmasters use props in your speeches?
In fact, that is one of the projects, right, Ahmad? I think it's level 4, the level 5 project. It's later in the program, but that is one of the projects that I haven't personally done yet.
Yeah.
Ahmad, have you done those types of speeches?
Yeah, and Chris, you're right. It the project's escaping me right now at this point. But yes, there is a project in Pathways that's in level 3, I believe, that is using props, because the reason why I know is because I did the project over a story of my family member selling a truck to another family member, that the truck caught on fire, and they put, instead of lifting up the hood of the truck to put out the fire, they put a fire extinguisher and used it on the hood, and which pretty much did nothing to take care of the fire. So I had a fire extinguisher at the house that I demonstrated, well, obviously didn't shoot it, but obviously demonstrated exactly how this went on. But yes, there is a presentation that props can be used for, that they encourage it for the presentation.
Mm. One of my favorite speeches, and because I haven't been involved in Toastmasters for over 10 years, I think that the speaking to entertain or the humorous speech came earlier. But one of my favorite speeches that I did was how to dunk an Oreo cookie. And I brought cookies in, a glass, half a gallon of milk, and for 7 minutes talked about there's different ways of dunking an Oreo cookie. Did you guys know that? Like you can dunk it whole, you can take the 2 chocolate halves off, you can scrape the white icing out, and it was so much fun for me to do that, and everybody loved getting cookies and milk at the end because I brought in little like, little small cups or, so we shared the milk and we shared the cookies. And that was one of the speeches that I remember the most, but so fondly because I enjoyed doing it. I didn't have any notes. I had no talking points, it was just, how do you dunk an Oreo cookie? Did you guys know there's more than one way? And so there's ways that you can, ease into a speech, and utilize, and then I remember one time when I was table topics master, one of the questions I asked people was, what do you use a stapler for? Okay, so beyond the obvious, to talk for 2 minutes, like what else can you use a stapler for, besides stapling paper? And we talked about it can be a paperweight. If you get mad at somebody, you can bash them over the head with it, but it's just the point of, you can talk so much more about a stapler or any other commonplace thing. And, when you're talking about silliness about a stapler, it just, for me, I always felt so much less anxious
Mhm.
by just having, some ready-made humor in there. So, yeah, I had a stapler too. So that was a prop as well. So.
That's, those are some great examples, Pam, and you must have been the hit of that particular meeting with your Oreo cookies.
I think I was, absolutely. Yes.
But that goes to what I was, the way I've always thought that Toastmasters, especially in a corporate club where you're so used to going to meetings and talking business and having dry conversations and, being very, being very unfunny, right? A Toastmasters is a time where you can really get to know your fellow members and you can really have fun. And in a corporate club, that hour or that hour and a half is really welcome because where else can you dunk cookies for 7 minutes or so. But one other example, there's a speech regarding there's a project in Pathways on vocal variety, and I remember somebody told me that for their speech, um, they they dedicated a whole meeting to helping the entire club with their vocal variety by bringing in children's books. Because when you're reading a children's book, you have to talk in different tones and in different voices for the different characters, and that's an example of vocal variety. That's a great example of how to practice vocal variety is pick up a children's book and read it. So they all read passages out of this a particular book, and it was a really fun activity. Any other questions that people have?
I think there's a couple people in the room that are presently Toastmasters. Don't want to call anybody out, but does anybody that is a Toastmaster that's not on the panel want to share and anything? If not, I'll be quiet.
I'll just say that these people are wonderful. I've worked with them for many years, some of the finest folks you'll ever meet. And I can only say it's a wonderful organization. Please come be a part of us.
Jason, thanks for your support. So I'm going to put into the chat once again the Find a Club link. I encourage everybody to go to that link and find a club. I know Carl put in his club's information, the website. Feel free to reach out to a club and just find out or hopefully you found out today what it's all about. I encourage you to find a club and join as a guest. No strings attached. You can join a meeting. You can join 5 meetings as a guest. There's no limit. So shop around for a club and find one you like. You'll definitely find one that you'll enjoy. This has been a great almost hour and a half, and I thank all of you for being here. If there's
Thank
nothing
you.
else.
Thank you for those of you on the panel for sharing your experience and your time with us tonight.
Thank you.